You are listening to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Blytho, and my regular weekly guests, and we are all here to share the research, the science, and the strategies, as well as some of the fun, to help you to create a more active life. Hello, and welcome to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Blytho, and my guest, Caroline Bramwell. Caroline is someone who has gone, in her own words, from inactive to Ironman, which is incredibly inspiring, but there is a little twist to the tale. It's not just as straightforward as getting up off the couch and doing an Ironman. There's more of a history there. So, Caroline, tell us just briefly what you do, but also how you went from the couch to a triathlete.
Lovely to be here. In my day job, I'm actually a PR and marketing consultant and mentor. So most of my time is sat at a computer. These days, there's a lot of it on Zoom and going to events. So I'm very much a creative person. I've done that for 30 plus years. But when I'm not doing it, you'll find me in Lycra. It's probably the best description of it. I had been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when I was pregnant with my second child, which is an autoimmune disorder. And the effect of that disease was basically it ulcerates your large intestine. The initial thoughts are that it's IBS, an irritable bowel disease is what I had, but they thought it was just, irritation. IBS is one of those things that is very lifestyle-led, but mine was actually the disease and IBD of ulcerative colitis.
Right.
So I turned into something I wasn't to start with.
Was that quite a gradual process? Did you find that it was just, or was it quite quick that you kind of went from feeling who you were and knowing who you were to being something that just didn't feel quite right?
Yeah, it was kind of as soon as the condition started, because the symptoms started to show while I was pregnant. So, of course, I'm fearing that I'm having a miscarriage because there's some blood loss and stuff. Once we knew that that wasn't the case and they didn't know whether it was IBS, after 6 months pregnant, I had to have a sigmoidoscopy,
right,
which is like the first bit of your colonoscopy.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do it until I was past the risk. So, yeah.
And that's when they found out that you had this inflammatory disease.
Yeah, that's when they definitely confirmed this is ulcerative colitis, so your intestines are all inflamed. Couldn't do anything about it until after the baby was born, because the way they treat it is give you steroids.
Oh, right.
And obviously, I couldn't do that whilst I was pregnant. So Natasha was born by cesarean, and after that, within 2 weeks, I was put on the steroids because I lost 2 stone in 2 weeks after she was born. That was the impact of the disease.
Wow.
And then I lived on steroids for 4 years, yo-yoing on the steroids. But the disease just took a grip and we could not get it to stay under control, to the point that I became housebound. I had to be hospitalised for a week for intravenous steroids, and I'd had 2 blood transfusions as well. So it was not a pleasant life. And considering I then had 2 little children, because my son was 2 years older, it was pretty awful.
And of course, with that, I mean, obviously inactivity is probably a major consequence, but also the side effects of steroids are weight gain and all sorts. So how did that impact you?
Oh, the steroids were the worst, really, because we had to put me onto the highest dose possible to try and control it. And one of the big parts of that is you get the moon face, weight gain, and also actually the mental side. Steroids really mess your head up. Really? I mean, I couldn't even go shopping. I would have meltdowns in busy shops because my head could not go. It was completely, I would describe it like noise in your head all the time. Right. But that's the effect of steroid. I would sleepwalk. I became violent in my sleep. My poor husband put up with that. I didn't even know I was doing it. I'd punch him in my sleep, but this was the effect of steroids. It was bizarre. So,
absolutely bizarre.
Yeah,
so
horrible.
You then went on to actually have surgery. So what made you, I mean, from what you've said, I can kind of understand why you had the surgery. What was the final point where you said, right, no, surgery is the answer now?
It's funny, actually, because I'd become really housebound. My business was imploding because I couldn't go out to client meetings. And so I was pretty much at home all the time because I couldn't be far from a toilet. And one particular day, my husband said, look, we're going to go to the cinema. And I didn't eat. I had a really calm day to keep everything calm, so I didn't have any flare-ups or attacks from the colitis. And we went to the cinema, which was great. But the attack hit me on the way back to the car. And there was nowhere to go apart from the bushes. And I hid in those bushes for anything up to an hour. And my husband was mortified because he'd never seen this. He'd seen me in the house when I was ill, but he'd never realised the impact when I was out of the house with work. And, you know, on a street, I might have to go behind a tree at any given second. And he was on watch. And we just had a conversation at that point. And he said, I think we really need to think about how we manage this. And I said, yeah, we do. His idea was we need to install a portaloo in the back of the car, which is, and I said, that's not where I was thinking. And I said, I think it's time for surgery because I want my life back. I can't live around the boot of my car with a toilet in it. And, you know, the disease was not under control. We struggled to always keep it under control. And, you know, the consequences could be a lot worse. So I said I'd rather have a bag than a box. So that was the night we decided that I was going to go ahead and have the surgery to have a stoma, permanent stoma. I'd avoided the conversation a lot with my surgeon and then thought, do you know what? This is right. Yeah, definitely. And that's when
You had the surgery, you had the stoma, and how quickly was it before you noticed that actually, yes, this was definitely the right move for me?
The moment I woke up from surgery.
Really?
I was so happy. I just remember being brought round and I was in my hotel room. Shows me how I felt about it. I was very lucky. I had bupa cover, so I had a private room. But I woke up and laying in my bed, and the anaesthetist came in and he swept away all the tablets that I had, considering I'd been on 16 tablets a day.
Wow.
He swept them all away and said, all we do is wean you off the steroids now. So you have one tablet or half a tablet a day. And I couldn't believe it. And the fact that I've got a bag meant I could get out of bed, I could walk around, I didn't have to worry where the toilet was. So actually people have said I was beaming the moment I came round. So for me, it was instantaneous.
Amazing. And then you decided, okay, so I've been inactive, I've had this surgery. So most people would say, time to rest and recover, but not in your case. What did you decide to do?
Well, I think initially I had to. I mean, it's like any surgery. It was my surgery was the first ever single site keyhole surgery performed for an ileostomy. So I've actually got no scars. And I've only got what we call a Barbie butt. Yeah. I'm all sewn up. So so I was, you know, I had a fantastic surgeon and my recovery was typically 6 weeks. You have to rest. But I didn't have the slip down the middle sort of healing to do. And that was in the March. And by the late summer, I'd become very depressed about the way I looked. I'd felt like that on the steroids because I was so bloated and overweight. And so I decided after surgery, I need to be me again because the weight just doesn't fall off because you stop taking tablets. No. You know, you have to work at it. And I was not a sports person by any stretch of the imagination. I'd sit on the sofa and watch the Grand Prix, Marathon des Sables, Tour de France, all these fantastic things are the things I would watch. So I was typically a real definition out of a couch potato.
Yep. So you were quite happy, sort of your endurance, if you like, was watching endurance events.
Oh yeah. That was my limit of sport because I hated it at school. I hated running with a passion. So at school,
most people would think, right, I need to just maybe go to the gym or do a little bit more walking. You decided to sign up for something a little bit more than that.
Yeah, well, I found because I was not sporty, because I knew I wouldn't just go out and do a run. And I'm not a gym bunny sort of person. You know, I'm not the person who could just walk into a gym full of people and go, oh my God, where do I start? I needed to do it for myself, and I was not motivated just to get up and go for a run outside my door. So I actually signed up for a charity cycle event about 6-9 months ahead. And that was my motivation, to have a goal to work towards, because I now had to do it. There was no running involved, it was cycling.
Yeah. And cycling
so
to where?
My GP. Well, this is it. I talked to my GP. It was London to Paris, and it was going to be in 24 hours.
Wow.
It was a 24-hour cycle event. In total, it's 270 miles when you take out the ferry crossing. And I went and spoke to my GP because, you know, we all have to check with our GPs if we're going to start doing something extreme. And my doctor had said, oh, Caroline, you know, I don't know, because you've had major surgery. And at the time, I was still suffering with osteoarthritis, which was a side effect of the drugs. Yeah. So I had stiff knees, stiff hips, stiff hands. And she said, but, you know, see how you go with a little bit of the training, but don't expect too much. Well, I came out of it thinking I'd been given the green light. So I hired a PT. So my fitness trainer got me out on a mountain bike. And it was so hard. It was so hard. Yeah. And I told him, I've got to ride London to Paris in 24 hours. We've got to be doing an average of 18 miles an hour the whole way. And he looked at me and went, no, you must be in 18 kilometres an hour. And I went, no, it's 18 miles an hour. And I was starting from scratch. And he went, well, we've got a lot of work to do. So I had my fitness instructor to get me moving.
Did you find that having a goal was a major driver for you? Because a lot of people find goals quite a lot of pressure. They just want to do something more for fun. But was that a major motivator for you?
For me, it was, because if I don't have a goal, I will slip back into lazy mode.
Right.
So I needed to have that motive to get out and do things. So that's why even now, you know, these few years down the line, I'm still goal driven. If I don't have a goal to train for, then I will just slack off, and I can't slack off. So back then I was doing it to lose weight and actually to prove to myself. So I set myself the goal to go out and get fit, mainly for myself. So I needed to set the goal. It wasn't just a physical goal to get from London to Paris. For me, it was a mental goal, because I had to prove to myself my bag now means I am free. Because considering I had been completely housebound, to me, this was a personal achievement. And so that's why I took it on. But actually, I learned a lot on that ride. I learned that it was easy to share the news of what I've got with some people. And I did have to dive behind a few walls on occasions. But all in all, it was a fantastic experience. And we got to Paris within 24 hours. We left London on the Friday morning at 9 o'clock and we got into Paris. I got there 7 minutes before the end of the 24-hour clock. And we rode down the Champs-Élysées to the Eiffel Tower. Yeah,
that must have felt quite amazing.
Actually, oh, God, the elation. But I went through dips as well. On that ride, there were some very dark moments when I didn't think I was going to get through. I wouldn't get up the hills. So we had a lot of other people riding. We sort of buddied up, and there was a crew following us who would stop, chat to us, refuel us with more food if we needed it, and just give us the oomph to keep moving. So, and I was doing it as a relay with a friend. So we would ride for 3 hours and then switch. But you would do a 3 hours, eat, switch, and go again. So it was a continuous 24-hour ride in that way. But yeah, the elation was amazing. And that we arrived on the Saturday. And of course, on the Sunday was the Tour de France finish. So I was actually on the Champs-Élysées and watched Mark Cavendish racing down the Champs-Élysées. So it was phenomenal. I mean, it was the best thing ever. It really was the best thing ever.
And from there, so having completed a cycle ride like that, you didn't sort of go, right, that's it, I'm just going to go back to normal fitness and doing normal things. You then moved on to triathlons.
Yeah, I think I slipped into lazy mode for a while because the friends I met on that ride then contacted me and said, do you want to do Newcastle to London 24? And I did that 2 years later. And that's when I clicked that I am goal driven.
Yes.
Because when I came back from Paris, I didn't have anything else to train for. I'd achieved my goal. And it was only when they said, do you want to do Newcastle to London? And I said, yes, that I found, actually, that's getting me back out again. So I have learned. And then after doing Newcastle to London, which is actually further than London to Paris, it's 30 miles longer. And it rained for 18 hours of the 24-hour ride. So it was a horrific ride. But then I decided, you know what? I need a new goal because I can do this cycle stuff. And I decided to learn to swim properly. I'm one of these people who, I was terrified of water from an instant when I was a kid. I couldn't put my head underwater. I'd hyperventilate. I didn't like being out my depth. So I had a bit of a fear of the water in that respect. But my kids, I had lost so much time with my children when they were tiny due to my illness that they swim like fish. And I decided I'm going to learn to swim properly so I can spend more time with them in the pool and be relaxed in the water with them. And so I went and had swimming lessons. And within 3 months of picking up the lessons, I thought, hang on, I can swim now. I could do a length without stopping, let's be honest. That was about the limit of it. So I believed I can swim. I know I can cycle. And my theory was anybody can run. And I thought I'd like to try and do a triathlon, something local, nothing big, just a little local triathlon. So I joined the Tri Club, North Devon Tri, because my belief is that if you want to achieve things, you surround yourself with people who are achieving those things. You're inspired by the people around you. So I joined the Tri Club and I realised how bad a swimmer I was when I was swimming with triathletes. That some of them were amazing. I mean, they were Ironman. There was such a mix of people in there. But there was the lane one was like for the slow people. So I was in that. But I stuck with it. And with their coaching as well, with my swim, it was brilliant. And I did my first little triathlon, was actually our in-club tri. And it was 16 lengths of a pool, which is 400 metre swim. Then we would do like a 12-kilometre cycle ride in the area and then a 5-kilometre run. But my theory of anyone can run isn't true. You can't just run. You have to train for running. And I'd never done training for running because I hate running. And so on that triathlon, I was so last by miles. What they do, when you have a triathlon, they put the slowest people in first in the water. The theory being, once the slow ones have got through, the fast ones come through, catch up, and you all roughly finish at the same time. I was probably the first person in the pool, and I was last by 20 minutes.
Wow.
As in, the person before me finished 20 minutes before me. Some of these blokes did the whole run in 20 minutes.
Gosh.
I was so slow, but I wasn't going to give up. And I got bitten by the bug. So from there, I started to agree to everything. The Tri Club friends were going, do you fancy this one? And do you fancy that one? And I kept saying yes.
But it's what you said there about surrounding yourself by people who are doing what you want to do is so important, isn't it? And it doesn't matter if it's as simple as going out for a walk or anything. The more you surround yourself with people who are doing this, the more likely you are to do it because you are inspired by what other people are doing. But I think as well, you probably become inspiring to others because even those who are much further down their triathlon journey than you were would probably be looking at you at times and thinking, do you know what? Actually, I haven't got a lot of the issues that Caroline's got. You know, it inspired them to keep going or to do more as well. And I think that's an important thing is just because you're not in the same place as other people doesn't mean you're not inspiring them.
Yeah, completely. I mean, things like parkrun are a great way to go and get active. Because you can walk it. It doesn't matter what pace you do at a parkrun. It's a free event. You're surrounded by, I don't know, in some cases, 100 people all doing it with different purposes. and it doesn't matter. There's no judgment.
But there are dedicated park walks now, aren't there, where it is only for walking. So, if you think, well, I'd love to do that, but I don't want to be the one person walking when everyone else is running, look out for something like the park walks, because there are more and more of those coming up. And it's, it's a sense of in it together. Even if you haven't met people, it's like, oh, let's walk together. And that helps to inspire. And it's something that becomes kind of, you look forward to it.
You also feel like you don't want to let them down by not being there. And that's a motivator to go. When you agree to do it with somebody else, that's another really good motivator, even to go for a walk when you don't feel like it and you think, oh, I've agreed to meet with Mary down the road, so I've got to go. And actually, when you're out, you're glad you did.
Yes.
You just need that little reason to get out.
And I find you walk further, swim further, whatever, but if you're with other people, you do more without realising it, because you're enjoying it, because you're enjoying the social element and the company. It's so important. So how many triathlons do you do at the moment? I mean...
Oh, every year can be different, depending on what I've got. In those early days, I was a bit ambitious. I got a bit gung-ho. Having got that little triathlon done, I then did a couple of local sprint triathlons, and then I thought, what I will explain is the distances so people understand. A sprint triathlon is the distances I did with a 5K run on the end. An Olympic distance is double those distances.
Right.
Then you double it again to a half iron distance, which is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 mile bike, and a half marathon. And then you double that again for an Ironman. And I was like, oh, I've done a couple of sprints. I'll do an Olympic. Oh, I've done the Olympic. I'll book the half. So I do the half. And then in the same year, I thought, oh, I'll book the half. And then a few months later, I'll do the full. That was my naivety. You can't just step up like that, because the distances as you get bigger and bigger are huge, and the training is different. So so in 2016 was the year that I actually did my half iron distances. I did them in 14 and 15 and 16, and in 2016 I decided I was going to do the full Ironman, but I was a bit too cocky, is that the word? Maybe, I don't know. I in the UK there are only two official Ironman races.
Right. Are there?
One is in Wales. One's Wales and one's Bolton. Wales is a sea swim. Bolton is a lake. So my nemesis would always still be the sea swim at that distance. So I opted for Bolton. But the downside is Bolton's also very, very hilly. Wales is hilly, but Bolton's also hilly. And I got cut on the bike route. What happens is you have a time cut off at each discipline. So you do the swim, and if you don't make it by a certain time, you can't proceed to the bike. And the same with the bike. You can't proceed onto the run if you haven't hit the time checks. And that's all done for safety reasons because of road closures. So an Ironman, you have 17 hours to do an Ironman. So, so I got cut when I did the Ironman in 2016.
Have you done one since, the full?
I did go back to it in 2019, and I won't swear, but the people organisers decided to chuck in a few extra 1,000 foot of climbing on the bike route 3 months before. So it beat me. I trained at one. I knew what was coming. I knew the route. I was training for it. And then they said, oh, because of whatever reasons, we've had to change the route. And it added so much more climbing on the bike. I knew I was never going to make it round, not in the time. So when I was tackling Bolton, when I realised that I wasn't going to make it to the finish because I knew this extra climbing was going to beat my performance levels, I knew I wasn't going to make that. So what I decided to do was actually embrace it. It wasn't just about getting round and winning a medal at the end of it. And we all get a medal every time you finish. It doesn't matter whether you're first or last. So I thought, I'm not going to finish, so it means I won't get the medal. So actually, why am I doing these? I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And so on that loop of the bike course, I decided that I'm going to just not beat myself up on this. I'm going to enjoy every moment. And rather than looking at that little bit of tarmac in front of my front wheel and chasing a clock, I'm going to look up, look round, and actually enjoy what I can see. Now, in Bolton, these are big hills. So when you're at the top, the views are fantastic. So I actually embraced it. I enjoyed the views. I thought, I'm here, I'm active, I'm out. And actually, a big part of Ironman triathlons is the support you get on the streets. It's huge. It lifts your spirit. And so I decided I am going to high five every child that has their hand out. And believe me, there are loads. They put boards up saying power up here, and they want you to bash their power up boards and stuff like that. So actually, I just took my foot off the pedal a bit and took it easier so that I could actually cycle along and high five all the children as I was going around, because to them it's an event, it's a spectacle for them. And I thought, this is why we do it. We want to enjoy it. So actually, my perspective was I might not finish, but I'm going to enjoy every second of it anyway.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you have said that you're quite goal-oriented and that's what really keeps you going. And I think sometimes we forget that you can be active, you can exercise, you can even compete for fun. Sometimes, putting the enjoyment back into it gets you ready for the next one, realising, okay, I'm not going to break any records this time, but I'm just going to enjoy it. And maybe that's the record I need to break. Maybe that's the goal, is to come away thinking, did that, really enjoyed it. And I think for the spectators, we often, when we're competing, I say we, yeah, no. Is there a stroll competition? But
there's a walk, there's a park walk now instead of park run.
I know, it's not really a spectator event though, but I know some of these really big spectator events, we don't realise the impact that they have on the spectators, because it is actually such an exciting thing, and people whizzing past is so amazing. I know my sister's been up close and personal on the Tour de France a couple of times, and she said the speed and just the sheer energy as they go past is really amazing. So even as a spectator, it's so important that, almost we seem to be enjoying it as well. So they've seen people, presumably at Bolton, really going for the win, but they've also seen people like you who, do you know what, I'm going to enjoy this and I'm going to say hi to everybody. And both of those are so important, aren't they, when you are competing. So what really keeps you going then after that experience? What got you back into the saddle, and what keeps you going with regard to triathlons?
For me, particularly because of my stoma and all of that, first of all, it was just for me, just to prove I'm back. But actually, the more I did it and people were following me, I'm talking social media here, my followers, people who had stomas, were seeing what I was doing to start with. And then people who do triathlons watch what I was doing. And I found my followers were going up and up. And I was getting messages from people going, oh, you've really inspired me to get out and do Couch to 5K and stuff like that. So actually, it's other people that inspire me to keep going.
Oh,
because I feel like I'm delighted that what I do inspires them. But actually, with those people, they push me more, because I know people want me to achieve things, maybe even on their behalf if they can't do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I push my boundaries. So that's why I get a lot of triathletes and patients following me. And now a few celebs are following me as well.
And that's, as I say, with a stoma, it doesn't, a lot of people, I think, maybe assume that, oh gosh, you have to be so careful and not do much. But actually, it doesn't have to slow you down. It doesn't have to stop you from doing things. And like anything, you learn to manage it, you learn what works, what doesn't work. But when, you're saying you inspire people, and that's so important, because inspiring people like you inspire others, and not to go out and do a triathlon or an Ironman, but just to go out and do something, just to go out and walk more, just to go out and cycle or go to an exercise class. And it's, I look up at sort of, role models. I don't think I want to do what they're doing. I think they're inspiring me to do more, rather than, oh, I'll never be able to do that, I won't bother. It's like, well, okay, I've got to start somewhere, I'll try it. And it's so important. And I know you're I hesitate to use the words poster girl, but you are in a lot of the marketing and PR, aren't you, for triathlons and triathletes?
Yeah. I was really fortunate. I mean, the charity Ileostomy Association, or Ileostomy and Internal Pouch Association, sponsored me. They were my second sponsors. And then I actually was invited by Hoob Wetsuits, who are like the leading triathlon wetsuit brand, to be one of their athletes. And, you know, I'm not a world champ or anything. I'm not super skinny. And that's another thing. You know, you don't have to be skinny and fit to do all this stuff. You know, I'm just a middle-aged mum. But it's the story. And that's why Hoob then became one of my sponsors, provided me all my kit, and I've done stuff for them as well.
Because I think that might be what puts a lot of people off is the fact that you do need access to kit, and that's not always easy or practical. People might not have storage for bikes, or they might not have a wetsuit or somewhere to train in open water if that's where a triathlon is going to be, because it's very, very different swimming in open water than swimming in a pool. So I think, you know, there's a lot of support needed out there for people who want to start in the early stages, isn't there? And I think is it the Triathlon Association?
British Triathlon Federation. Yeah, BTF.
BTF. Presumably they're a really good place to start if you are interested in finding out more, because it's not all the long distances. You can do the mini ones.
You do the little ones.
Yeah.
And they have something called Go Try, which is for people to have a go at a triathlon. Oh. Yeah, so they do have Go Try.
Yeah,
and I've qualified with them this year as a coach. So now I'm actually coaching as well. And I've actually just our North Devon Tri Club, which I'm now chair of. Considering I was the girl who couldn't even swim or run, I'm now the chairman of the Tri Club. We've partnered up with one of the local schools who wanted to run a triathlon for their students, and they've now opened it up to all the schools in the area. So we're actually coaching and running a triathlon for youngsters. So that's just phenomenal. To me, that's where we should start as well, getting youngsters interested.
Yeah. And to me as a teacher myself, not of triathlons, but as a teacher, I know how much joy you get from watching people learn and take it on board. And I think for me, a triathlon, you know, you might be a really good runner but not great at cycling or swimming, but you can still give it a go. You might be a really good swimmer but not a good cyclist but a good runner. There's something for everyone. Can you actually do it like as a team of three, that you each pick your own discipline, like the one bit you're good at?
Yeah, you can compete in races in what they call a relay. So one person does the swim, one does the bike, one does the run. So in most triathlons, you've got the option to enter a relay team. So if you are only, say, a strong cyclist, that's fine. You just do the bike stage. And
that would be such a good way of building that team spirit, that teamwork and everything. Really, really
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you've gone a step further. So you don't just compete and promote and now coach. You've also started a subscription box. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yes, I'm just about to launch the subscription box, and it's called the Triathlon Box. The reason it's called Triathlon Box is because we used to be able to take all our kit into transition, and it was a tri box. We're not allowed to use boxes in them anymore, but the Triathlon Box now is a subscription with a monthly delivery of all things tri-related. So it would include samples of energy bars, gels, anything nutrition, hydration, but also lots of all the little gadgets that you get in triathlon, like elastic laces, everything you might need. Each month there will be a different compilation of bits to try.
That sounds really amazing, and I think anybody who's interested in moving from sort of giving it a go to actually starting to take it more seriously, this would obviously be a really good way of trying things out without having to invest a huge amount of money in gels that you suddenly think, well, that one doesn't work, or that one doesn't agree with me, and bars. Yeah. And also, if anyone's listening who manufactures any of these products, get in touch with Caroline, because, get your products in her try box.
Absolutely, yes.
But that sounds like a really fun way or a really practical way of finding out what works for you and what doesn't. Because the bars, some of them you like, some of them you hate, some of them kind of stay with you for a little while. So being able to try things out and say, no, don't like that one is a really good opportunity. And
and that was my thinking, because I'm thinking every time you buy them, you end up buying packs of them. And then if you don't like them, or they don't work for you, as in they upset the stomach, or, you've wasted all that money on a whole batch of, energy powder that you're never going to use. So this is why I've put the triathlon box together, to have like little, I say samples, but they're full-size bars of everything. Yeah. It's just that you get one of different things each time. And I'm going to be putting in some training plans as well, which is why I qualified as a coach, so that I can actually provide some written training. Nothing mega. I'm not training elite people, but for those people who are new to it and just want a few sessions of how do I improve my swim or stuff like that, that's all going to be part of the triathlon box.
And that support is so important, isn't it? Because triathlon's not like running, where you just go and you run, and there are different elements to it, the different disciplines, but also the transitions, how you do it. But energy things, energy refueling, because, you mentioned which one's giving an upset stomach. Nobody wants an upset stomach when they're competing in any event. Whether you've got a stoma or not doesn't matter. It is not something you want to happen, because it will impact on, what's going on. So being able to try these things out and figure out which ones work and which ones don't, and which you like, is so important.
Yeah, definitely, because the flavours might not work for you. You might just not like the banana. Everything's got banana.
I hate banana. I hate banana flavoured anything. I really don't like it. And, for me, that would be like a big consideration, is like a mixed box of something that's got loads of banana in. No, I just don't like that artificial banana flavour. It's just one of those things,
Exactly. We're all unique. Everybody's got different tastes and different bodies.
But you never know.
And that's where it's all come from.
There might be a bar that actually has that in it that I think, actually, I do like this one. So it gives me a chance to try it out. But if somebody wanted to start, if somebody thinks, right, do you know what? I've always wanted to do something that's a bit of a personal challenge as well as a physical one. Where would they start with something like a triathlon?
Normally, I would. If they wanted to do it with no cost, then I would say just start doing things like your park run. Concentrate on your run, get your running sorted, and get to your local pool. But what I did was actually went and found my local tri club. Now, here in North Devon, we take people of all abilities. When I started, I could hardly swim a length, so the clubs are there to support. So if you fancy doing a triathlon, the first thing would be go and find your local triathlon club, have a chat with them, see whether they're a good fit for you. Are they a group that only take on the more elite people, or is it more of a community type triathlon club, which is what we are. So we take people on of all abilities and find out a bit more about getting involved with the club.
And if people, say there are people out there with a stoma of any kind, where would they go for information about starting to participate in activity? Because I think there's probably a lot of people out there who think, I'm just not sure with my stoma what to do. Where would you recommend they go for a bit of support and advice on exercising with a stoma?
I've done an awful lot with Ileostomy and Internal Pouch Association. And with that charity, they actually have an exercise specialist who now does Pilates classes, called Sarah Russell.
I know Sarah.
She is yes, of course you know Sarah. Yeah. So yes, Sarah would be my go-to. Sarah is the one I would talk to, Sarah Russell.
Yeah, but because it is so important to get good, sensible, practical advice to follow, isn't it? Because I think, it's with a stoma there are additional considerations. So having the right advice from the word go is so important, because
it's all about your core muscles. You've got to protect it. You don't want to do anything that might create hernia or complications. You need to do it the right way. And that's where Sarah, with her ostomy studio, comes in. I'll
pop a link to Sarah's website in with your information. And obviously everything we've talked about, the British Triathlon Federation, the Ileostomy and Internal Pouch Association, we'll put all the links in there, because it is so important to get the right advice, because I think for a lot of people it's the difference between starting something that they enjoy, they feel confident and safe doing to keep going, and giving something a go, something going wrong because they weren't sure how to do X or Y or what the implications were, and giving up. The whole aim of this podcast is all about promoting activity, and you don't go into a triathlon from the couch. It is something you build up to, but it's that build-up process, isn't it, that's so important. And you might decide, you know what, I'm never going to enter a competition, but I just like doing these 3 different things, and I feel more confident doing them now. Yeah.
And one of the things I found was a lot of people who are perhaps new to having a stoma get worried about swimming. So people, when they worry about the swim, people come to it and they get worried about the swim because they may be worrying about, will the bag stay stuck? I think that's probably the biggest fear. Believe me, I tested every product on the market when I started swimming, so I know what stays stuck. And one of the things I really wanted to do is organise some Swim With Me events around the UK so that people with stomas who may be a little fearful about water, I would go to certain areas of the UK and actually hold an event, and they can join me and we can chat and I can get them in the water and help build the confidence to get back swimming again.
And that would be amazing, because not only for people who want to get back to swimming who've had a stoma, but also people who maybe aren't confident in the water anyway and have a stoma. It will give them that confidence. Because like you say, you've tried and tested a lot, so you can give really good advice on that. And that's confidence in everything is such a big part, isn't it, of becoming active and starting to exercise, whatever. It's just having that confidence that it's going to be okay.
I think that's a big part of it, confidence to go out and start. And the other thing, I think people also, those who want to do events or race, sometimes, we were saying earlier, they get nervous about, oh no, shall I do that? There's a lot of imposter syndrome can kick in.
Yeah.
People can go along, go, oh, do I really think I'm good enough to do this? Events are so inclusive. Everybody has put in the work and put in the training, and everyone is entitled to stand on that start line, no matter whether you're completely new to it or whether you're more experienced. It's an equal playing field, and triathlon is a sport of support. That it is very, very supportive community.
And every single person who's crossing that finish line was once upon a time was at the start line thinking, am I good enough to do this? So that's something to remember. You know, just because they're finishing first, second, third or whatever now, they started somewhere probably thinking, am I going to finish this?
And I can tell you, I have finished last. When I started doing triathlons, I was always last. But do you know what? The best bit of that is you get the biggest cheer. When you come in, you get the fireworks and the celebrations at the end when you're the last one.
And let's be honest, you coming last in a triathlon, you're still beating everybody that's never even got off their couch.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
So, you know, it's just, like you say, that's when you get all the support and enjoyment, you know. So you say, right, do you know what? I'm not going to win, so I'm going to enjoy every single minute of this. And that's the important thing for me with activity. If you're going to do it, do something you enjoy, whether it's a triathlon or a walk in the woods. Do something you enjoy, but start.
Yeah, absolutely.
And try everything. Try lots of different things. Because you never know which is the one that you're going to think, this is it.
Yeah, it is about trial, isn't it? Trying different things, try different sports.
Yeah.
But and as we said earlier, have like-minded people around you, because they will help motivate you, and you'll achieve more when you're having fun with other people doing it.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of these groups, local groups, national groups, help, don't they? Because you're part of something, and you're part of people who will encourage you, which is so important. Caroline, thank you so much for talking to me about this, because I actually think it's so important that people realise that, you know, something like a stoma doesn't have to hold you back. And, you know, even coming last, you're still winning. So
absolutely. That's
what's so important about this, is wherever you are now, just take the next step to becoming more active, because you won't regret it. Never regret it. No. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Belito, and my guests. Join me each week for more on how to create and sustain
everyday activity, and follow me online at Fitness Career Mentor or Fabulous if you're interested in career development and more on creating active lifestyles.